This is just a sample of the audiobook. To get the complete audiobook, access the link posted in the first comment.
Has gathered and thrived. Its tendency toward egalitarian traditions, mistrust of central authority, frequent combativeness, and an odd indifference to wealth make the Scots-Irish a uniquely values-based culture whose historical journey has been marked by fiercely held loyalties to leaders who will not betray their ideals. And its migration from Northern Ireland directly to the wilderness of the Appalachian Mountains, bypassing even the rudiments of colonial civilization, accentuated a strong sense of individualism and self-reliance, while also bringing a cultural regression in terms of education and social refinements. Great lines from country music, an art form created and dominated by the Scots-Irish, are continuing testimony to the pervasiveness of these themes. I can be had, but I can't be bought. Take this job and shove it. I ain't working here no more. We'll put a boot in their ass. That's the American way. You can stand me up at the gates of hell, but I won't back down. You can't stomp us out, and you can't make us run, 'cause we're them old boys raised on shotguns. And so on. And so ever on again. Today, the Scots-Irish and the people they have so strongly influenced are the greatest arbiters of American politics, providing the swing votes that cause the nation to move periodically between the Democratic and Republican parties. They were the original Jacksonians. Indeed, Andrew Jackson defined them to America, and were among the strongest of the Franklin D. Roosevelt Democrats. Decades later, they formed the core of the Reagan Democrats, and with that pendulum swing went the votes of the South over to the Republicans. Karl Rove understood them completely, even if he did not overtly identify them ethnically, fashioning many of the emotional and values-based issues that consolidated the power of George W. Bush. As the 20th century moved forward toward the 21st, the impact of this culture grew, particularly in the military as well as in rural and blue-collar America. But the modern Democratic Party, and indeed most of America's elites and its newer immigrant populations, lost its consciousness that the Scots-Irish even exist as a cultural group at all. Obsessed with a political strategy that targeted ethnic minorities, dominated by leaders who had no first-hand experience with this group, and generalizing the loss of white support in red state America to simple racism, the Democrats lost the backing of their key historical core group, those farmers, laborers, and mechanics to whom Andrew Jackson had dedicated his political career, and around whom American populist democracy had been formed. At the same time, America's elites persisted in racial and ethnic policies that ignored a fundamental truth. Indeed, in this age of political correctness, it can even be uncomfortable to utter this truth, but it is at the heart of America's current ethnic dilemma. White ethnic groups in America are so varied that it is impossible to lump them together in the formation of policies affecting minorities without creating even greater disparities among white cultural groups themselves. These realities were clear from the outset if one had the cultural eyes with which to see them. And for me, the genesis for Born Fighting came in 1972, when I left the Marine Corps and entered the Georgetown University Law Center. For many Americans, particularly left-wing activists, the early to mid-1970s was a time of victory and even of affirmation. For others, especially traditionalists, it was a time of confusion and of defeat. The Watergate scandal was in early swing and would soon dominate the nation's attention, culminating in Richard Nixon's resignation from office in 1974. The Vietnam War had dragged on for 8 bloody nation-draining years, and just before my law school graduation in 1975 would end with the ignominious fall of Saigon. The civil rights movement had reached its emotional apex a few years earlier with the urban riots that followed the assassination of Martin Luther King, Jr. in April 1960.